Welcome to Gather the Roses. My name is Kendra, and today I just want to talk to you about being a Christian and having down days. Just because you're a Christian, many people think that we're always happy, bubbly, and cheerful. And for most cases, it is true. When you have Christ in your life is just brighter and happier. But just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're not going to have days where you're feeling down and blue. That's a normal thing. We all go through it. We're not immune to it because we're Christians. It just means that maybe we need to spend more time in the Word, more time in song and worship. Yesterday, I had a down day and I felt like, why am I going through this? At the end of the day, I didn't feel like I did anything that accomplished anything. I didn't feel like I did anything that was important. And I was like, why did I even bother getting up? And I know many of you out there have probably experienced those feelings. For the most part, we bring that on ourselves. And we are going to have down days. There's days that it's just hard. We have difficult days. It's normal to go through that experience. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not sinful to have a down day. But when we have a down day, it just means that we need to go to Christ and ask for strength and help us to see maybe why we're having those days. And I'm going to tell you something that I've been realizing over the last few years is that a lot of what I'm experiencing now as an adult, as a 40-year-old, stems back to my childhood. And I think that the more that we get to know ourselves and who we are, the freer that we can become. And that might not make sense, but what I'm going to share with you is that I've looked back to my childhood and kind of been like, where am I getting this from? Because in order for me to feel really good in that day, I sometimes need to feel successful. And I'm going to tell you, I know I'm an overachiever. I always have been. And I strive to do better. So for instance, a couple years ago, we planted potatoes and I planted, maybe 100 pounds of potatoes. So this year, of course, the overachiever in me has got to do 200 pounds of potatoes. And that is kind of how I lived most of my life. If I succeed in something, then I want to exceed even more the next time I do it. I've always been like that. So much so that even when I was in elementary school, near the end of elementary school, they actually pulled me out of some of the arithmetic classes and put me in high school arithmetic and had me in a little room with maybe one other student and a teacher doing high school math because I push myself. I always push myself. So even so, when I was in high school, they actually bumped me up to a university course. I think I was in grade 10. And it's just, I always try to outbetter myself. And I've brought that into my adult life. So even when it comes to canning season, different things like that, I'm that person. And I've come to realize that I take on way too much. It's a hard thing to overcome that. I still want to keep doing more. And I set myself goals for the day. And if I don't accomplish them, then I feel a little down. So what I'm learning is not to overdo my goals for myself in the day. And that's a challenge in itself. I think that if we can go back and kind of learn why we do things, we can get a better understanding of maybe our outlook and our decisions in life. So this year, I'm kind of going to try and not take on so much. I want to focus a little bit more on my health, a little bit more on my walk with Christ, a little bit more on my family, and just enjoy a little bit more of life itself and nature. Usually what I do is that I cram so much into my summer between gardening and I try and pick up so much work and I just overdo it. And this year I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to allow myself to be free from having to take on those burdens, because what I have done all these years is taken on all these extra things to make myself feel better about myself. And what happens is those days where I'm not doing a whole lot, then I feel really down. I feel like I didn't do anything. I wasn't important. And I learned that doing things doesn't make me important. And you know what? It doesn't make you important either. God finds us important no matter what. The fact that we get up out of bed, we do our daily readings, the fact that I make my daughter and husband breakfast or meals, the fact that I'm doing dishes and laundry is important. And I've had to learn that. And it's taken a couple years to kind of feel like, you know what, that's right. I am important, even doing the small things, because to God, the fact that I'm a good wife, a good mother, I'm doing good by Him, and that makes me important. And I'm important to Him whether or not I'm taking a rest day. So I got to stop defining myself by what I accomplish and how successful I am. And I want this to be an encouragement to you too, that if you're like me, an overachiever, ready to please kind of person, look back and see where that came from. Because I would bring home, certain grades, maybe A pluses and stuff, and it would make my parents really happy. And I'd get like, this exciting feeling, and I wanted to keep that feeling going. So I always push myself even further. So, and even coming to please people, like for instance, you make someone happy by doing something. Well, it's addictive, you get a good high feeling from it in a sense. And we don't need that, So learning to be okay with yourself as a Christian, it's a different kind of work. And learning to be free of the need of having to do these things to make us acceptable. Because let's face it, we can do everything in our power and try to win our way to heaven, but it doesn't mean we're going to get there. I can do nothing of myself to enter heaven. I can't please God by doing all the right things. What He wants is me to surrender to Him, to love Him and to worship Him and to follow Him and to be a light in the world. I don't need to do works in order to be successful to enter heaven. Yes, we do. There are requirements. God does say what is good, and He does say what is not good to do. So there are things that we need to do, but in and of ourselves, we can do nothing. But with Christ, we can do all things. So your little tidbit for today is take a look at who you are and why you do what you do, where it came from, and start kind of relearning that it's okay to step back and not take on too much. I just wanted to share that with you because that's something that I've learned about myself. The down days are hard. It's because I believe we take on the burdens of the world when Christ says to give those burdens to Him. I think that we can find a lot more joy in life if we learn to be kinder to ourselves and know that we're acceptable to Him who loves us.